Okay, so now that we've seen how to use a menu and control it with if statements in terms of whatever choice you picked out of the menu, how you derived the flow of your program from that point on was controlled with the results of the evaluations of these if statements we've seen last time. And what I mentioned is, with all these nested if statements, the probability of making mistakes is huge. So you could see that it gets really, really intricate. Is there a much easier way to handle this? The answer is yes. So let's go ahead and copy all of this, and I'm going to remove all of the if statements out of this. So I'm going to gut this program in a new file. So let me just go ahead and create a new file. Paste it here. We're going to call this one 28. Oh, that was 27. So this will be example 27. Just keep track of where we are. All right. So this time, instead of the use of if statements, we're going to use the switch statement. Okay? We're going to keep the menu the way we have it here. So I'm going to remove all of these if statements out of the way. And notice now we're back to a much simpler program where we could display the menu and ask the user to enter a value based on what's on the menu. And we should be able to control and validate the input based on the fact that we really want 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, but nothing else. And after we pick any of these, we want the appropriate operation to execute. Okay? All right, so the way to do this is you could, and you should have, a switch statement based on choice. So switch based on the value that you picked, and then put a curly brace, and then close the curly brace. So this is where the meat of your logic will happen, right here. And notice how I'm going to break it down for each case. Case 1, which means the choice is equal to 1. Do something. And let's say for now, I am just going to go ahead and do cout addition operation. I'm just going to display that and end out. Now, if you want to end this case, you need to break out of the switch case. This allows you to get out. Okay? So we can actually test it right now for at least if you pick integer, if you enter integer 1 and see what happens here. So let's go ahead and do this. Compile and run. It's going to ask me to save it. This will be example 27. Excellent. We get a menu. Let's go ahead and make this a little bigger. Not too big, just about 28 is fine. And let's do 1. Addition operation. So it is geared up to pick up on 1. Now, let's run this program again and pick 2. Nothing should happen. Right? Because there is no case for 2. Now, what we could do at this stage, write something called default, which means if you pick anything other than 1, you can pretty much print an error if you want to. So cout you can print the actual value of choice is not a valid Option. Yeah, sure, why not? Okay, need the quotes here. Now, what is this going to do? Notice I don't need a break for this one. This will always be the last statement that you will do here when you line up all your cases. So if it isn't 1, you're going to get this error. If it is 1, then this is what the break does. It will kick you out of the switch, so it doesn't even need to evaluate this. So I'm going to remove the break in a minute to show you what happens if you don't have a break statement here. Okay? First, let's get it to work the way it is. So compile and run. And let's pick 1. So 1 is fine. As you can see, addition operation. Now we're going to pick 2. So let me run it again. And I'm going to pick 2. Now remember, I do not have a case for 2. Right? I do not have a case for 2. So what do you think is going to happen? 2 is an invalid option. So because I did not write a case for 2. So this allows me now to control which cases will be valid. Right? So I don't need a whole if statement with ranges and so on and so forth to filter what I want or don't want. Here, you simply will add a few lines of code where you're going to specify exactly what you're going to do for case 2, case 3, case 4, and case 5. In my case, I only have case 1. Now, let's see what happens if you remove the keyword break. So instead of deleting it, I'm just going to put 2 slashes, which means it's basically a comment, and it will no longer be interpreted or be converted as some sort of an instruction. But you need to recompile to do this. So compile and run. And notice I'm going to print 1 now. Now watch what happens if I do 1. Now we know 1 is a valid case. But notice because I don't have a break, what it will do. It will continue on going in and it will read the default. And it will say, so it will confuse the user. You have an addition operation and at the same time, 1 appears not to be a valid option. We do not want that behavior. The key here is you want that break because you met or matched the case, get out. Don't go to default. So you leave the default at the bottom just in case, okay? None of your cases have a match. That's what the default is for. And it's always written at the bottom of a switch statement. So now that we know a break is important for each case, let's go ahead and do case 2. So let me put back the break and let's put case 2. And then C out, subtraction operation. What I need you to pay attention to is how simple, much simpler than this is much simpler than nested if statements. So let me break here. Always break. Otherwise, you saw the behavior. It will go to default if you don't break. Okay? Now, if case 1 is not, if you, let's say you enter 2, well, case 1 is not met, it will not execute, it will not break, it will keep on reading until you meet the case. So let's compile and run and enter 2 and see if case 1 appears, and it shouldn't. Notice it goes straight to subtraction operation, breaks, does not even execute what's under default, so we are in full control of the behavior of how we want to control this program, right? So now you could do case 3. Now you can customize it. So see out, what do you want? That was multiplication operation. So we're putting a header. Something like this. Okay, and make sure you put a break. And then case 4, see out, that would be division operation. and then make sure you put a break there. And then case 5 is your exit operation. So see out. You could say goodbye or thank you for using our calculator. And do not forget to put the break, because if you forget that, it will run the default. Okay? So break allows you to get out of the switch once a case is met. And all the instructions for the case are between the keyword case, whatever the number is, down to break. So now we can put our operations within each case. So first, let's go ahead and test it out the way it is. Always test before you start adding more involved code. So let's go ahead and compile and run here. And let's do a 3 multiplication. Hit the space bar. And let's do it again. And let's pick 5 this time. And it looks good. Let's pick 4. Just test them out. Oops. I'm on my Mac. The keystrokes are different than if I was on a Windows machine. So 4, there you go, division operation. Excellent. So now we want to do these operations. So we actually want to do this. You could ask for the numbers for each operation, or you could, if you want to review if statements, you could have an if statement here. Based on the fact that you're between 1 and 4, then you'll ask for the numbers. So you could do something like this. If choice is greater or equal to 1 and choice is less or equal to 4, right? Then we'll ask for both numbers. Then we'll do a couple things here. And we're going to do cout. Enter num1 and then num2. Okay? So cin num1 num2. Now you could write a separate line for each one if you wanted to. So this will happen only if you have some sort of an operation between 1 and 4. Could I have rewritten this part inside of each case? Yes. It just will be, you're going to have too many lines of code. So I like to write things as efficient as possible. Now it's a matter of, okay, if I picked one, go ahead and do the operation. So result here is going to be equal to num1 plus num2. And then go ahead and print the result. So cout result equals result. And then put an NL right here. We're going to do the same thing for subtraction. Notice how much simpler this is now. Equals num1 minus num2. And again, cout result equals, and then result and L. Okay? And we're going to do the same thing for multiplication. We're over here, so cout, result equals num1 times num2. That's the operation that you want. Go ahead and display the result. And for division, now we can evaluate if num2 is not 0. So if num2 is not equal to 0, or to be even more precise, 0.0, right? Go ahead and divide. So result, so since we're going to be doing several things here, I'm going to put curly braces. we're going to have multiple lines under this if statement, not just one. One for the result equals num1 divided by num2, semicolon, and then result, we want to display the result. Now we could have an else statement here. So as you can see, you could have an if statement within the case. And this one, since it's going to be a single line, so see out, can't divide by 0. And there you have it. Now we have our calculator. Let's see how it behaves. Okay? All right, so let's compile and run. And let's go straight for division. So let's go ahead and pick on 4. It's going to enter num1, num2. And let's say I enter 4.5 and a 0. I want to divide by 0. So notice we are within the division operation. Can't divide by 0. Perfect. So it picks it up. It breaks. No default was executed. We're within the range of the choices we have here. Let's run it again. And this time let's pick multiplication. So I'm going to pick 3. And I'm going to multiply 2 by 3. And there you have it. Result equals 6. Okay, so I hope this was very instructive on how to use a switch case statement. Okay, that does not mean you're off the hook from if statements. As you can see, if statements can come in really handy, okay, for managing the flow of your program. This if statement here will not execute if you picked 5 or you picked 6 or 0 or -3, right? So this is great. This only allows me to enter my 2 numbers if I picked anything between 1 and 4. Even if the second number I intended it to be 0, it doesn't matter. It's an operation. The evaluation of the operations were done in the cases right here. Much, much simpler than, say, writing a whole bunch of nested if statements as we see here, which could be prone to a lot of errors. Okay, so stay tuned for the next series of videos or lessons on looping. So we will review while loops, do while loops, and for loops.